What's up, everybody? This is Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com. It's HawgSports.com. Day 5 of the coronavirus shutdown. We're going to talk about that. We're going to answer your questions. We're going to try to get into a lot of different things. Danny West is going to join us to talk recruiting because, fortunately, at least something sports-wise, recruiting never stops. All that and more on Hog Sports Live. Like I said, it's day 5 of the coronavirus shutdown. I think 24/7 Sports has done a great job of coming up with different creative ideas for content. I will say this, starting off, the CDC recommends a ban on groups of 50 plus for 2 months. I don't want to make this whole show about the coronavirus. Lord knows you can go just about anywhere and find out information on the coronavirus, COVID-19. I will say that I've stepped into the idea of trying to be extra cautious. Social distancing, I think, is the best measure right now, just based on what all the experts are saying. I'm not an expert, but just based on what they're all saying, that seems to be the best method right now. So CDC recommends ban on groups of 50 plus for 2 months. So it's March. That puts it at May 15th-ish. So if you're thinking spring football is still a possibility, it wouldn't happen without some major changes to the calendar, because the last day of final exams, I believe, is May 11th. I think it goes 7th through the 11th, something like that. So that's the last day of final exams. So you would have to go beyond the semester into the summer school stuff if you wanted to hold spring football. I think it's a disadvantage for Arkansas, any team that has a brand new coach. It's a big disadvantage for them. National letter of intent has been put on pause, suspension amid coronavirus. On Friday, March 13th, the NCAA adopted emergency legislation to establish a temporary recruiting dead period for NCAA Division I and II sports, effective immediately. And then it goes on to say the same issue. As such, national letters of intent cannot be issued to Division I and II prospective student athletes effective March 16th, 2020 through at least April 15th, 2020. So it is a dead period in recruiting. So that means no face-to-face contact. Obviously, that's been the main thing, with the coronavirus right now. So no face-to-face contact, but that doesn't stop them from continuing to make phone calls, to interact socially. You still see recruiting offers going out and things like that. Danny West has some articles, in fact, with some recruits that Arkansas is in on, and that stuff will continue. You can read about that at HawgSports.com. That is our VIP content, okay? We want to make sure we take care of our subscribers at this time. A lot of them are there for recruiting news, and so we're amping up our recruiting coverage. We have time. We're also coming up with some other fun things to talk about. I've got some breakdowns also. I'm going to start breaking down each individual recruit in the class of 2020. That was something I'd planned to do over the summer, but I'm moving that up. So my first analysis is on Andy Boykin, just going over their film study, what other people are saying, what other experts are saying, what we can expect maybe from a guy like Andy Boykin, and I'm going to go on down the list alphabetically on each of those guys. I thought Pete Roulier had a really good story. Top 10 performances this season from Mason Jones. I'm not going to ruin the whole thing, but, the guy had a couple of 40-point games. It's a great story. You can just search for Mason Jones top 10 performances this season, Arkansas Razorbacks, and you'll find that story. But it's a great look, I thought. Well done by Pete on really one of the best seasons in Razorback history from Mason Jones. It's a shame it had to end the way it did. There's all kinds of stuff coming out right now with simulated SEC tournaments, simulated NCAA tournaments. There's way too early top 25s for next year. Just stuff you didn't expect to see right now. Yesterday was supposed to be Selection Sunday, one of the best Sundays of the year. Arkansas coaches released statements on the cancellations and postponements. Eric Musselman said, I'm going to get past the thank you to Commissioner Sankey and Hunter Yurachek because they all say that. We're extremely disappointed for our team and fans that the basketball season came to a sudden end. The health and well-being of our student athletes and community is paramount. My heart particularly breaks for our seniors, Adrio Bailey, Jamario Bell, Jeantal Silla, and Jimmy Witt. Those guys helped us establish a culture of a program that would put us in numerous ways moving forward. Thanks for the bottom of our hearts. I'll say this on basketball. This wasn't the way this team – obviously, this isn't the way the season's supposed to end for any team. I mean, championship-level teams and for Arkansas. To me, and I think a lot of us out there, we looked at this team as the launching point team, the team that didn't have the talent that future teams will have, but the team that got it going right from a cultural standpoint and really set the floor, the foundation for what this program was to become under Eric Musselman. I was interested to see what they would have done in the SEC tournament, but obviously losing Isaiah Joe was obviously a huge blow for this team, especially down the stretch. Mike Neighbors, thank you. With that said, I'm devastated for our team, especially our seniors. Obviously, with Mike Neighbors, that was a tough one. They were going to the NCAA tournament, had a good team. I'm devastated for our team, especially our seniors. The team worked so hard to get to this point, and the NCAA berth meant so much to this program this year. My heart goes out to them, and I just want to thank – well, I mean, he goes on to thank a lot of people. We know these decisions are being made with the well-being of the community in mind. While I'm disappointed in the cancellation of the NCAA tournament, I'm glad there are preventive measures being put in place to combat this ever-changing public health threat. That's a tough one. And I'll say this for Hunter Yurachek, in terms of like leadership, you see all these NBA players and stuff saying they're going to fit the bill for the concession workers and the ushers and all those people who normally make money off NBA games. And really, the owners should have come out and said, hey, we're going to take care of this, the billionaire owners. But for Hunter Yurachek to come out and say, we're going to take care of the landmark people. Those are the people that handle the ushers, the guys in the yellow jacket, the women and men in the yellow jackets. Going to take care of those people. Going to give Mike Neighbors his bonus and anybody else who earns a bonus and look at everything else case by case. But Mike Neighbors, they were going to the NCAA tournament, deserves that bonus. Sam Pittman, appreciative. These are unprecedented times that we're dealing with right now, and they continue to evolve. We want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for health and safety of our student athletes and community. When we're allowed to return to team activities, we'll be ready to go to the plan to improve our football team. I mean, these are all pretty much the same thing. I don't want to go down every coach, I guess, but they're pretty much the same thing. Obviously, everybody's disappointed in the way things are right now, and probably nobody more than Mike Neighbors and Dave Van Horn, of course. I mean, the baseball season is over. I mean, it's suspended, but just the way that they're talking right now, no CDC recommending no gatherings of 50 plus. And, Hunter Yurachek saying the other day that it would be really difficult to jump right back in and start playing games after a month, which sounds like it's going to be longer than a month, and just jump back in and start playing games. So baseball season's effectively over. I've had a lot of changes in, like even the last time out when I was on. And by the way, I'm going to do more of these, just because I know, we've got to fill a void, and I want people to make it through this. And I'm just, thinking of what things I can do, and people seem to enjoy the show. So maybe do more of the show. Maybe we'll do that. So I've got a story, top 10 most underrated Razorback recruits of the decade. That's on HawgSports.com. So it goes 2010 to 2019. I'll tell you, there was about 28 of them that I felt like fit the bill and had to narrow it down to 10. I also did 5 honorable mentions, but I feel like these 10 really fit. Frank Ragnow is a good example. Jeremy Sprinkle, Armand Watts, even though he just had one good year. I mean, these are guys that were rated like Armand was number 746 player in the country, and ended up getting drafted number 190 overall. So there's a lot of interesting names. I think that's a good debate to have, but you can also find that one by searching top 10 most underrated Razorback recruits of the decade. 115 college coaches got together to vote on who would have won the NCAA tournament. Spoiler, it's Kansas. But it's an interesting read also. The story goes on to break down everything. Like I said, 24/7 Sports is coming out with a lot of cool stuff. I mean, for the time it is. Best streaming sports movies to watch in isolation. If you got a suggestion on that, I want to hear your comments on it. But there's some you would expect: Rocky, The Sandlot, He Got Game, Remember the Titans, Any Given Sunday, which Any Given Sunday was so unrealistic. Their movies, The Waterboy, that was unrealistic. Major League, of course. If you got any ideas for sports movies to watch, then put them in the comments. I want to remind everybody, of course, there's plenty of ways to watch and listen to the show. You can always tune in on Facebook Live. We're always streaming the show live. Also available on YouTube. If you're listening on Facebook or watching on Facebook Live, be sure to hit the follow button, interact with the video, hit the thumbs up button if you like the content that we're producing. Also on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up if you like the content as well. And share the content with others. If you like the content, we'd love for you to share it. Also available on Apple Podcasts. Be sure to throw us a 5-star review. Say something nice about the show if you like it. And available anywhere else you can think of to find podcast right now. So plenty of ways to watch and listen. And we want to thank everybody for tuning in, whether you choose to watch or listen. Okay, I'm going to go to Danny West now. And we're going to get to your questions too. But I want to get to Danny because, as I said, there is recruiting stuff going on still. That hasn't stopped. Even though they've shut it down to a dead period, that just means no face-to-face contact. It doesn't mean there won't be offers going out and recruits getting called as well and interacting on media. What's up, Danny?
Hey, Trey Biddy. What's going on?
Oh, nothing. Just talking about, I don't know. We're talking about the coronavirus. I said we're not gonna just like jump into coronavirus stuff, but I mean that's what there is to talk about. So I just kind of went over some of the stuff the CDC has said, and just kind of breaking down basically how recruiting is never ending, even though we are in a dead period now, and added a new dead period. That doesn't mean there's not phone calls going out, and you've been communicating with several recruits also, and have some stories up on HawgSports.
Yeah, you know what? I think it's kind of funny. I've got all these people hitting me up. They're like, man, I hate it for you. What are you going to do now? I'm like, are you kidding me? Pray for Trey. Pray for Pete to come up with something to write.
Yeah.
I mean, recruiting it's not going to stop. In fact, I could argue that I may be a little bit busier now. You know, coaches can only recruit. We do have an article right now. What are the players doing? The current Razorback players. It's a VIP article, but I thought it was interesting just to kind of hear from some people what the current players have going on. You're gonna see some of them leave campus, and that takes I guess a little bit of load off. The coaches still have to get with these guys via the telephone and try to install some of this offense and defense and special teams. So there's a lot going on in that regard, but at the end of it, Trey, they've really just got that facility to themselves, and they can sit down and evaluate film and make calls and texts and DMs. So recruiting is never going to stop, ever.
Yeah. So what are some of the things? I know most of our recruiting stuff is VIP. We want to make sure. I want to make sure that we take care of the regular casual fan out there, obviously, and give them good content to read, like top 10 lists and other creative things. But most of our recruiting is VIP, and we are definitely going to make sure we take care of the people who are subscribed to us and who have been with us a long time. But I was wondering if you could just touch on a little bit of what's going on in recruiting right now, and maybe some of the stories that you've got on HawgSports.
Sure. Like yesterday, Sundays are always a good day to reach out to kids for whatever reason. Maybe they get a little bit lazy. They're not running around with their friends quite as much, so they'll answer that phone. But yesterday, I spent most of the day, just texting, calling kids, and they're pretty bummed out about it. Honestly, so many of them had already scheduled, different visits. What you really hate is the guys who were traveling, across the country. They booked flights, and now that's pretty much over for them, and got to take that loss. But, just a couple of guys that we've got on the site right now. Devin Manuel, he's a big, big offensive lineman out of Louisiana. Came up for the junior day on March 7th. They offered him 6'8", 329.
Yeah,
is that big enough? Sam Pittman would say, well, he ain't as big as Big Danny Skipper, but he's plenty big.
He's plenty big.
So he's plenty big. 6'8", 329. Are you kidding? So, I like him quite a bit. And I think Arkansas, with Brad Davis having a connection to this kid, I think they're going to have a pretty good shot with Devin. the only SEC offer on the table for him right now. Another kid I want to hit on, 2022 running back. You guessed it. He's just a sophomore, but it's that time of the year where you have to start getting in on some of these guys.
Mm-hmm.
Antonio Martin is a big-time dude out of Fairburn, Georgia, which, as you know, Trey, is basically Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
So I like this kid a lot. You can just tell when you're talking to a big-time kid, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Kid's got it together. He's got all these offers, but he's got a good head on his shoulders too. And I can't sit here and tell you that Arkansas is going to beat Alabama and Georgia for this kid, but I do think they're going to be in the mix. I really do, because of Jimmy Smith. Everybody, he may be a new name to some people who don't follow it quite as closely, I guess, but Jimmy Smith, the running backs coach, has a big name in that Atlanta area.
Yes.
And I think he's done a really good job so far with Antonio.
Well, hey, with
Antonio
Martin,
tells me they've got a great relationship.
I know Alabama has offered Florida State, but has Georgia offered him yet?
I believe. I just said Georgia. I know Georgia Tech has. In fact, Georgia Tech was the other team he mentioned. He mentioned Arkansas, Jimmy Smith, and Coach Choice, Tashard Choice from Georgia Tech, really being the two coaches that stand out to him, just in terms of the attention they've shown so far.
Gotcha. With running backs, usually I would say 7 out of 10 times they nail it. It's probably maybe more often than that, but it's probably the most accurate evaluation out of any player. I'll say something I always look for. I've said this before, but something I always look for. Obviously, speed's going to jump out, and stiff arms and spin moves and all that stuff is going to jump out, all that athletic stuff. But what I always look for in running backs is what happens when he doesn't make a move. Somebody puts their helmet in his hip. What happens? And I love the guys that it's like nothing happened. They just keep on going in stride. Guys just bounce off of them. That is always something that I've looked for in running backs. And, so running back is probably the easiest position to evaluate in football. Quarterback's probably the hardest.
Oh, yeah, without a doubt. I've had some real winners at quarterback, buddy.
You know what I suck at?
Safety seems hard.
Man, that's what I was about to say. I suck at evaluating safeties.
I mean, for
17 years straight, just terrible at it.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but I can't seem to nail it.
I'm not going to blast them because they're still bigger than me. They'd beat me up for it. But I've had some real doozies at safety, man.
Yeah.
I mean, just hands down, thought they were going to be great, and they couldn't. Wouldn't bust a grape in a fruit fight, man.
Danny Dadgum West joining us with HAWG Sports. Most of Danny's stuff is VIP. Most of the articles that we're talking about now are VIP. So if you want a VIP subscription, it is $1 right now for your first month during this coronavirus shutdown.
I heard you mentioning some of our content ideas. I think we're on to something there. We're going to get a little bit creative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, you mentioned the promo signing up right now. It may not seem like a lot to talk about, but I think we're going to make this thing fun. We've already come out with a new feature, the slop.
Yeah.
Have you mentioned the slop?
I haven't mentioned the slop. Yeah. So the slop is just something we kind of came up with. Danny and I were in Nashville last week, we got back right before all this stuff started going crazy. And we were at a partner conference with 24/7 Sports, where they're based, and just kind of coming up with different ideas. And one of the ideas we came up with was just talking with other publishers. What works for them is the slop, and that's just going to be a weekly feature that has just from takes from Dan. It'll be a VIP deal, but just what Danny's hearing from the inside, what I'm hearing, Pete's hearing, along with some opinion, thoughts. It can be really anything, but just kind of a weekly deal that people know is coming one day a week. So
it should be fun,
as
well as all the chats. We're going to run more chats.
So Danny did a big recruiting chat. What day was that? Sunday?
Friday night.
It's Friday night. Yeah, Danny did a big recruiting chat. I've got a chat going on there right now, just an Ask Me Anything. Most of the questions have been about sports. A lot of them about one of the good ones was that you asked, Danny, was the three most pissed off moments that I had last year, and that actually took me a while to think about. But
it's hard to narrow it down to 3, right?
When you're so pissed the whole time. Yeah. But I think I narrowed that one down to the Kentucky game. I was super pissed, mainly the Kentucky
you're
game,
pretty mad.
when I got pissed off at the Kentucky game was when we're sitting in that post-game media room and Trey Shapp asked Chad how fragile that locker room is right now, and Chad says it's a very fragile locker room.
Yeah,
and I just remember going,
not the best moment.
Just sinking. I remember sinking down in my seat because
that's not what you want to hear, man.
Right. The moment popped up when, after Garrett Ekman's passing, and rest in peace. One of the sideline reporters asked Bobby Petrino, in light of that, your team is fragile, it's weak. What do you do in the halftime? Something to that effect. And Petrino said, yeah, we're not fragile or weak, and walked off. And I just remember being proud of the way he answered that question. Obviously we were all grieving with Garrett, but we had a football game to play, and I just remember being proud of that moment. And then when Chad answered it, I just remember having the exact opposite. And it was that moment where I was like, this isn't working.
Think about it like this. I mean, if it affected you that way, you cover the team. Imagine not only how the fans felt, but what if you're a player?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
You're a head coach.
Yeah.
Say you're fragile, man. I just don't know how that would fly.
What were my other moments? I think the Auburn game.
I haven't even read it yet. You're kind of spoiling it for me.
Sorry.
I haven't read you. Yeah.
Well, I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway because I've told people I'm going to. But the Auburn game, that one I believe is when I was sitting, because we had a system where Pete and Alec would go down to the media room after the game. I'd start working on my opinion piece. You'd finish up the gamer and start working on your next thing. And then they would pipe the press conference through the loudspeaker in the press box. But I typically wasn't going down. Everybody had their own duties. But I remember sitting there after the Auburn game, just kind of paused. Yeah, just still. And then I remember I was telling you, I'm going down.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. Just because there were questions that I wanted to make sure got asked. Now, Chad didn't necessarily answer them, but there were questions that I wanted to make sure were asked in that press conference.
That was a week after the Kentucky game, too.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
I mean, they played a respectable game at Kentucky. You come home and it's 51-10. Now,
right.
Auburn was really good, but, man.
51-10 at home. Yeah, and, I mean, Arkansas had also shown that they could – I've said before they had every excuse to be a bad football team, but not a disaster. This is not a disastrous roster. And I would say probably the third most pissed offness I'd experienced was probably that Portland State game where you're like, here we go again.
Oh, yeah.
We're about to here we are in week 3, and this whole thing is falling apart. And they kind of bounced back a little bit against Texas A&M, and they played Kentucky well. But after that Kentucky game, it was a complete let go of the rope. There were other instances in press conferences and stuff where I kind of threw my arms up in frustration that, just a simple question just wouldn't get answered. It was frustrating. So thanks for asking that question and make me relive every single moment that I was pissed and rank it.
I'll give you one more.
Okay.
But I might have been a little more pissed off than you this day. It was November 2nd. Mississippi State came up here 54-24.
Yeah.
And I remember at one point, like, this never happens. But Trey Biddy had to tell me in the press box, hey, tone it down a little bit. I had seen enough, ladies and gentlemen. 54-24 at home.
I remember that. There was so those who don't know, there's no cheering or booing or anything like that in the press box.
You can't be pissed in the press box,
right? So, but I mean, sometimes just like, damn it,
Yeah.
What are they doing? Man. Anybody who saw my post game walk and talk after Mississippi State knows I was legitimately pissed.
That was a bad one.
Yeah. What else you got going, Danny? I kind of went over a few of the articles. We're going to try to do some more top 10 type of stuff. And I think 24/7 has done a great job coming up with content ideas. Some of the other publishers across the network have come up with things that are fun, I think, for, across fan bases and stuff. But
did you watch any of the virtual SEC tournament that Marcelo and the Auburn site did?
I couldn't figure out how to – I don't have a Twitch account. I couldn't figure out how to get it to play.
It just popped up for me. I just clicked.
It kept asking me to subscribe and pay money, so I wanted to watch it, but.
Well, Arkansas made it to the semifinals, and they lost to Auburn.
So
But,
that might have given them a shot to make the big dance, right?
I think if they had won that virtual game, they would have been in the virtual NCAA tournament.
I thought it was funny. We had people talking about the game. They're like, "Great!" Right when I turn it on, LSU or whoever goes on an 8-0 run, just like real life.
Yeah, that's how it happens. And I did send that link to Ash this morning. The Kansas national champions vote that they did, 115 coaches. Have you talked about that?
Yeah, I touched on that. I'm sure Ashley found some real solace in her fake national championship, which Florida, the state of
bad call on my part to send her that.
You make a lot of bad calls like that.
I do.
The state of Florida has declared Florida State the national champions, which makes no sense at all. There are teams ranked ahead of them that have better winning percentages. I mean, they also did the same thing with UCF, though, I guess, which
they're still waving that flag.
Yeah, still waving that flag.
Florida State was good, but I can't disagree with Kansas. The way Azubuike and Dotson were playing the last 6-8 weeks, can't argue with it.
So, Danny, back on this COVID-19 deal, coronavirus, my personal opinions have shifted a little more to really being cautious versus, before I was like, I'm just going to kind of go about my life. I'm already kind of germophobic. Just make sure I stay away from people. But I've kind of shifted a little bit more towards, I'm not getting out unless I really have to. Probably grocery store runs, stuff like that. If somebody needs some cold medicine or whatever, that's kind of where we're at, or some allergy medicine, I should say. But have you shifted from where you were initially? Because my thoughts are, I'm not so much worried about myself. I think I'm generally a pretty healthy person. I don't have any, thank goodness, pre-existing conditions that you would list. I think I never get sick, so I think those are all good signs that I would be okay. But I worry about spreading it because I know that there are people out there who are susceptible, and there's a curve, and you're seeing all kinds of things with, again, I'm not an expert, but I'm just saying what experts have said, and it varies so far, but I do feel like that there is, a point where this is going to peak, and we have a chance to mitigate that peak and level it out a little bit better. So that's kind of where I am. I think in the public good and the idea of the public good, it's probably best that we definitely practice social distancing as much as possible.
I'll put it to you like this. A week ago right now, at this very moment, you and I are in the air.
Right.
We're flying to Atlanta and then to Nashville.
Yeah.
If that was this week, buddy, we're probably not making that trip.
Oh, there's
agree?
There's no question. I mean, you look at the airports. I mean, the lines are
nuts.
like to get people checked and stuff is
Luckily,
pretty.
you had that pre-check stuff that got me through rather quickly last week.
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
Well, I didn't even know that would work. I thought so for those who have TSA pre-check, heck, I don't even want to tell TSA pre-check. I want the lines to stay short.
Yeah. I may have blown it for
never mind on that. But if you do have TSA pre-check, if you buy someone else's ticket with you, then Danny got TSA pre-check, who never even flies. I guess it's just because I'm a trusted flyer and he's coming with me. They can trust him too.
Trusted by association.
Trusted by association. I did not know that was a thing, but
it is now.
Yeah.
But as far as this virus, man, to answer your question, I'm a little more cautious. I'll tell you, as you mentioned there, not wanting to spread it. It's not so much about yourself, but it's a little bit different when you've got a pregnant wife.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
I mean, I'm a little more, and she works at a healthcare clinic, so it's a little bit worrisome for me. But as long as I'm not as optimistic as I was last week when you asked me this. I'm just not. I'm a little more cautious. And
speaking of
staying my butt at home.
Speaking of poor decisions, do you want to share the story you told me earlier about the about the doctor visit?
We might as well. I can't avoid it now. So
my
wife goes to the baby checkup this morning. My daughter's not in school. All the schools are closed, so I keep my 4-year-old daughter at home with me. My wife goes to the checkup, and she's there for 30 minutes, and she sends me a text, and it says 153, and I was like, dang. You ever been that big before? And she writes back, that's the baby's heart rate. And I felt so small. And let me tell you, for the record, she's nowhere near 153 right now. Not even close. But I didn't know that.
No, she looks the same to me.
Yeah. She just got a little baby bump, but yeah, that probably wasn't my best moment there.
Not your one shining moment there, Danny.
But you know Ash well enough to know that she died laughing.
Yeah.
So she really didn't find it offensive.
Yeah, Ashley's funny. I could see her taking that in stride, but that was I found that quite comical. Yeah.
Wow.
Anything else you want to talk about, Danny?
No, I think you've ruined my life. I appreciate it.
Okay. Well,
no, it's
I blame it on the Roni.
Yeah. No, I'll tell you, I'm just going to get back to work here. The good thing about kids being at home is they can hit that phone. You know, I feel bad ever texting a kid during school hours, but hey, they're all free game right now, right? Most of them.
Hey, I'll say this too. I mean, I'm keeping an eye on our traffic. I'm worried about, everything just like everybody is. But I don't know if it's maybe because people are home more, but our traffic year over year is way better than it was last year. Yesterday, Sundays are always, not just huge days for us, but we were like 35% higher traffic than we were this time last year. And it was a Sunday, and last year it wasn't a Sunday. So
that's good to hear. And I think we'll see more of that. People are going to be at home looking for any sign of sports whatsoever. And
people didn't lose interest in sports. It got taken away from them. So we are trying to come up with creative things to, and not just stupid stuff, but just, things that maybe we would have done in the summer, we're moving up, top 10 list, all that stuff is fun. Yeah.
We're going to be talking about it. It will get back to normal eventually, knock on wood. And in the meantime, we're going to have some fun talking about different things, but the recruiting never stops, and we're going to have plenty of it.
Yep. All right, Danny. Appreciate you, brother.
All right, man. See you.
All right, that's Danny West. Again, you can read Danny's content at HawgSports.com. VIP membership is just $1 right now for your first month if you want to check that out. If you're interested in recruiting, then obviously that stuff never ends. We don't have the junior days that we were going to have. We don't have all those visits, the evaluation period. Who knows what's going to happen there, but I mean, that could also be quite limited. All right, I want to get into everybody's questions here. We got some what's up and some good afternoons. Good afternoon to you guys. Michael Coates says, It can't live in high temperatures. Go get in a sauna. It'll kill the bacteria in your nasal passages. Okay, so not medical expert advice from Michael Coates, but that is the hope, I think, for a lot of us, that April gets here, it warms up, kind of like the flu. This thing doesn't do well in warm temperatures, and this thing starts to pass. I mean, that's the best case scenario, isn't it? Touching my face again. And I'm so good usually about touching my face, but I've been pretty much locked down anyway. So, I mean, if we've got it in this house, we've got it. I don't think touching my face is going to do anything. But if I get out, I think it's good to practice good habits, though, because if I do have to get out, I think I'm the best candidate to get out, then good to be in good habits. Joseph Marquez says, I'm so bored with no sports. I hear you, man. Mark Timothy Vickers says, Rudy's a great one to watch as far as sports movies go. Lance Hamilton's Major League Fishing is still going on for some sports to watch. So if you like fishing, Lance Hamilton says that's still an option for you. I would think the safest sports, fishing's probably up there because you're definitely going to be isolated. NASCAR, it's not like you're interacting with people that much. I guess the pit crew, maybe it's not great for them. Soccer, you're not using your hands, right? Except for the goalie, and he's got gloves on. Spitballing. Brent Treadway says, any big-time offensive lineman that we have a legit shot at? Danny talked about that a little bit. We kind of had that similar question the other day, but Arkansas is going to get some big-time offensive linemen, no question. With this coaching staff, I mean, I think they did last time. Those 3 offensive linemen that they got are all very, very solid recruits. Where are we with the football team for 2020? Are all the sport spots filled? You mean for recruiting? They still, I believe they're all full. They don't have any that they can count back to last year. Okay, so they're all full on 2020 recruiting. They have 25, including transfers. They have 25, so that's it. And in that same vein, as far as walk-ons go, they cannot offer scholarships to any walk-ons who are shy of entering their third year on campus because that counts as against a recruiting class, and you can only have 25. So once you are heading into your third year on campus, then you're eligible to get a scholarship as a walk-on and not count against the 25 recruiting class. You just count against the 85. Henry Cagle says, as a Razorback fan, I enjoy your show. Hope you will share important event that will happen down the road with Razorback teams. Hope so. Matt Hart says, hey, HawgSports on Facebook, and IG has the Morning Slop, which is morning news updates. Tim Allen says, Monday changing hands may spread it. Money changing hands, yeah. I mean, they say it lives on surfaces, right? I've heard up to 24 hours. Again, not an expert, just kind of repeating what people say out there. Good stuff, guys. Love the show, says Matt Hart. Appreciate you, Matt. Do you think this is going to push back the season? I don't think it'll push back the season. I mean, I think that it feels like people are really embracing the situation now. I talked to so many people who were like me early on that says, yeah, I'm going to go about my normal routine. I'm just going to, distance myself, not do stuff that I don't have to. And really, I think people are not only embracing that, but also my idea is let's take care of this. Let's make it as quick as we can. And I think by social distancing, not quarantining yourself necessarily, but, in a way, if you don't have to get out, just staying at home. Let's get ahead of this thing. I think Fauci, Dr. Anthony Fauci, who is the director of the NIAID, whatever, one of the disease and allergy things, he has basically said, let's have everybody say, hey, everybody overreacted. Everybody overreacted. Let's go ahead and just accept that. That's what we want people to say. And I think that's the ideal situation, is that we look back on this and we say everybody overreacted, or we look back on this and say everybody did the right thing and we got past this. Greater, the movie, says Matt Hart. That's the Brandon Burlsworth one. If you haven't seen that one, yeah. Ken Paul. So seniors getting an extra year in certain sports. They're not going to get an extra year in basketball. I assume baseball would fall under that category, but certain sports, yeah. But I also say, I wonder about a junior. Should a junior get back his year or her year? Or sophomore or freshman? There are all kinds of things that could impact with scholarship. There's so many things that they're going to have to rewrite in terms of scholarship limits and things like that, and calendar and stuff. Like with spring football, since we don't have spring football, do they open it up? Right now it's voluntary workouts in the summer, but they open up and say, okay, you can sprinkle in practices here and there, or this and that. Just depend, because there are some teams out there who have, I think, completed their spring. Kim Paul, we answered that one. Tim Allen says, I'm so ready for football. That's the thing to look back to next year. Kim Paul says, are Jones and Joe coming back? We're going to start hearing about people declaring early sooner, but I think it's just too early to tell on those guys. I'd give it 50-50 on both of them individually, to be honest. Mason Jones isn't on draft boards right now, but that doesn't mean he can't go professional and make money, because you can. I think if those two guys come back, then we're talking about a really dangerous basketball team next year. Really dangerous. The 4 freshmen that are coming in, all 4-star recruits, very well-regarded players. Those guys, so, I think Desi Sills really took his game to the next level. If he can pick up where he left off, losing Jimmy Witt I think would hurt, but you've got 4 guys coming in that are really, really well regarded. If you get Joe and Jones back, you would think that both of those guys will be improved. Maybe Jones does a better job at, taking people off the dribble, moving forward, adds that to his game. Maybe Mason becomes a more consistent three-point shooter, improves his handles a little bit. He's still got good handles, but, he can improve a little bit in certain areas. And then you add guys like, don't touch your face, you add guys like, Connor Vanover, J.D. Notte, some of those other players, Bebe. I think they have a possibility to really take this thing up a notch, kind of in the same idea as, Arkansas was a really good team back in 92, 93. They added a few players in 94, 394 like Al Dillard, Darnell Robinson, Lee Wilson, some of those guys, and really took things up another level. Paul Feinbaum said it was a mistake to cancel the NCAA tournament. Maybe it was. I don't know because I'm not an expert, but I do feel like, again, for my personal ideas on it is I don't want to get it and spread it or help spread it or facilitate the idea of it's okay to go out and go about your normal life and spread it because, again, I'm not worried so much about myself. That doesn't mean I would be fine because you can get different doses of it. I mean, you could get double doses of it. But to me, I think I'm in pretty good health overall for a 42-year-old based on what my numbers say. I don't have to take any kind of medication or anything like that. But I do worry about people who are, 70 plus, people that are dying from this kind of stuff. Not to say they're the only people, but largely. I mean, if you're in that age group category, you have pre-existing, I think definitely should consider staying home. Definitely should, probably. And other people have different obligations, different work, all kinds of stuff. Richard Blair says, I endured pollen in the spring and mold in the fall. This crap ain't going to worry me, LOL. Yeah, and again, I'm not worried about my personal self. I thought a great tweet was, our grandparents were called to war. You're getting called to sit on your couch. Let's do that. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for joining me. Again, we're going to do more shows. I want to make sure that I can do what I can to keep people entertained from a sports standpoint. I think the movies idea is a good option. Good time to work on hobbies. Read a book. That's where we are right now. I want to thank everybody for joining us. Thank Danny West for chiming in with some recruiting stuff. Again, that stuff does not quit. And we'll be back with you guys again soon. I don't know if I'll be on tomorrow, but I plan on doing more shows, like I said. This has been Trey Biddy with HawgSports.com, and we'll catch you next time.